So Jim and I met through Jill McCullough, the adult services librarian at the Clyde Public Library. Jill met Jim at a postcard club meeting, and he had this collection of Clydesdale memorabilia that he wanted someone to turn into a book. And Jill had actually connected with me that I was interested in exploring more about Clyde history and possibly doing a history of Clyde. And so she asked me if I might want to work with Jim to do his book, and I totally underestimated his collection. When I first met him, I thought his collection was going to be a few pieces, maybe a box. Well, he had a whole truckload.
And a truck.
And a truck, and it was definitely enough to work with, and we ended up telling a much bigger story than what either of us really anticipated, I think.
And what Tiffany really brought to the book was all the research that kind of connected a lot of dots and made the story somewhat complete, or as complete as we felt we could make it.
Right.
And that was quite a challenge. And when we first met, I don't think either of us knew how all these things were going to fall together.
No.
But I had a lot of stuff, and the Heritage League had a lot of stuff. And it was a good, and the library had some things too that was very helpful. And it with her expertise in looking for things on the computer, on the internet, and I think her vocation with this, the American Bar Association, she's kind of used to being a bit of a, what do you call that, a person that looks for details and information.
Yeah.
And so it was just, it worked out perfect.
And
we're a little different in age. I'm a little older than she is, you can see that.
But we're also just different, and I didn't know anything about trucks, so Jim really brought a technical expertise that I couldn't have done on my own, and he really made me feel not so worried about not knowing anything
But
about
now
trucks.
you know a lot about trucks.
I do know a lot about trucks now, and I didn't expect to have so much fun learning this much about trucks. But
Can you
One of the
explain?
stories that Brenda would want to hear, I think, is when someone asked, were women ever involved in Clydesdale? Now, you got one very good story that I think is worth, you discovered that too.
right. So we did get a question during our program today asking if women were involved in the Clydesdale Motor Truck Company, and the answer is yes. There is one photograph in the book of the Clydesdale office staff, and they were all women from around town. So they do appear to be working in the office, but that was pretty typical for the time period, so that's not really a surprise. But one thing we did discover was there was a woman who was a Clydesdale salesperson, and she won several awards. She was in New York and won several awards for her ability to sell a truck. She got into a profession that was not really that friendly to women, and so she did get some press about that at the time for taking on a position like that, but she did. So.
Can you explain how in this day and age the technology allowed you to work together from a distance?
Oh, for sure.
She can tell that story well, yes.
So we worked mostly over email and telephone, and we had 3 or 4 meetings at the library over the course of a couple years.
3 years. When we first met, it was 3 years ago.
Okay, so we worked mostly over email and telephone. I did a lot of my writing independently and then forwarded things to Jim. I did most of my research online. I used a lot of Google Documents or Google Books, which has digitized a lot of the trade magazines that are from our time period as PDF documents, so you can search them and found articles that way. We used a lot of, we kind of owe Google for this project, actually. We used a lot of Google. We used Google Books, we used
Google Images.
We used Google Docs to make editable documents that we could work on at the same time. And then we used Google Drive, which allowed us to transfer all of our really large photo files back and forth in a really easy way. Jill at the library digitized Jim's collection.
The entire collection is digitized.
The entire collection into high-res images that were suitable for our book. But by doing that, it also allowed us to have digital copies of everything, and we could start in one place. We didn't have to be in one place to look at Jim's pile of photographs because we both had electronic copies. And Jill kept us really organized so that we knew which photos we were referring to whenever we started talking about photos.
And how do you feel coming back to your hometown as a published author, Tiffany?
Oh, it's sort of surreal. And it's just my hometown, and I just did a project that happens to be interesting to everybody else in our town. So it's a lot of fun. Today's been a really fun day. So
We had about 60 people in attendance today, which is really there wasn't an empty seat in the place. It was just wonderful.
I do hope that I could do more projects like this. I had a lot of fun doing this one. I think that the history of Clyde is something that isn't really well documented in a way that is friendly to the people that live in Clyde. I think it's documented in places and in spots, but there are really wonderful stories that come out of my hometown that I hope can that I hope we can turn into other things. And Brenda would love that because the museum has it all. And so
Thanks so much for sharing your time with us today. We really appreciate it. I really wish I could have seen your presentation. Was it videoed?
I don't think so.
I don't think so, no.
Okay.
So
Well, we're glad you had time
We took lots
after your
of
busy
pictures.
book signing to
We took
stop
lots of-
at the museum.
Yes, we did.
we did take lots of pictures.
So, and thanks, Jim. I know you've been a good friend to the Clyde Heritage.
And I don't intend to change that at all.
Excellent.
I intend to stay in touch with you folks.
Thank
And I
you
happen to
very
like
much.
Clyde, even though I was telling Tiffany, they did a write-up in this Hemmings magazine, which is a motor news magazine that goes all over the world, 175,000 distribution, that magazine. They give us a half page on our book, which is just terrific.
Well, maybe that'll bring some people back to Clyde, Ohio.
That could very well,
They just won't be driving to Clydesdale.
probably not, but what was interesting, they referred to both of us as Clyde natives, so I feel like I'm a Clyde native. I don't live in West.
Well, welcome.
I'm an honorary Clyde person, and I
Excellent.
take that with, very humble about that. I love the fact I could be from Clyde.
And of course, you don't appreciate any of this when you live here. I grew up here and never would have thought that I would enjoy something like this.
And if it hadn't been for my friend Bruce Dickin at American Greetings, I probably wouldn't even be standing here today. Just the way life kind of directs you, and Bruce is the first one that told me about Clydesdale trucks. So he told me about his dad on a crate on a flat car with a truck being shipped overseas when his dad was 17 years old. And Hugh Dickin became the president of the old Fort Bank. And Bruce is still a good, close friend today. In fact, what I should have done is given you one of his illustrations. I'll go to the car and get you one before I leave.
Thank you very much.
She doesn't have one.
I don't think she probably does, no.
Is there anything else you'd like to share with our viewers?
Just really appreciate the support that we received, not only from the Heritage League, but from the Clyde Museum and the people in Clyde as well.
Right, and Brenda's a whiz with putting things on Facebook, so she helps spread the word far beyond our little town.
Too bad the Tiffin Advertiser Tribune made a slight error. But we're certainly glad you were able to spend a little bit of time here, and we understand how busy it was at the Clyde Library today with a full house. So thank you very much.
You're welcome. How was that? That's 5 stars?
5 stars.